For Hi, Megan.
Hi. I'm
How
so
you
happy to
doing?
be here.
You're
I'm
happy
good.
to be here. You're happy to be there, and I'm here.
Yeah, I actually do kind of wish I was in Dallas, but it's okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Fort Worth, so you'd have to take a long Uber to get here. But I did try to recruit you to move to Fort Worth, and I was actually a little bummed when you said you found a spot. I'm happy for you, but I wanted you to be the new Fort Worthian. But tell me where you are, and I know you're moving and why, because if anybody does actually watch this, you got some exciting stuff going on.
Yeah, it's been a wild year. So I live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I've this is my 3-year anniversary, well, in April. And I have been trying to get my husband to move somewhere warmer, but unfortunately and fortunately, he's a chef and owns his own catering company. So we're in Jackson for the foreseeable future. And we live in an amazing log cabin, which you can see here, which we both love on a lot of land, have been here for 2 years now. We're obsessed with it. It is only one bedroom and we are having a baby.
Ah!
So I know we have to, hopefully no one can tell. My goal is that like this is shocking news, right? Because you look at my face and you're like, you could never tell she was pregnant. I'm trying to keep that for as long as I possibly can.
You have the
Um,
glow, though. You have the glow. So, I mean,
Oh,
that's a
amazing.
tell. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I've been waiting for that because I've been feeling really disgusting for the
Yeah.
most part. It's that second trimester glow. But yeah, we're moving into a bigger house. It is not on as much land, but it's much closer to like town.
hmm
And it's 2 bedrooms, which is a big accomplishment for us. And finding housing in Jackson is like nearly impossible. So we're very excited.
Nice. Well, I had the pleasure, privilege, and it really feels like a privilege to ever go to Jackson Hole because it is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. But I want to thank you and acknowledge your the time you spent with me when I was there. I was there for a somewhat random conference, the Western Governors Association, to just understand what like all of the West was talking about and cared about. And you were with Outpost Group at the time,
Mhm.
and you walked me all the way around town, and it was pretty cold, I remember.
It was cold.
It was cold. And I think that's where our BFF ship was forged. But we also have been talking a ton this year, and I'm most excited about this move you've made from Outpost as a vacation rental management side to Inhaven, which is a vendor. And without kind of asking a generic question, but like for you, what like what has been the biggest surprise? Like not many people cross that Rubicon, but I'm just curious, like give me the inside scoop on like what does that mean? Is it a full identity shift? Have you had to, realize that more just from coming from the other side? And how are you using that? I mean, it's kind of not a lot of people do that.
I was really nervous about it. It's funny because when I left 360 Blue in 2021, I thought that I wanted to go to the vendor side then, and I was only interviewing with vendors. And Outpost was the only property manager that I talked to and ended up taking the job, moving up here from Florida. And I was like, maybe I'm just not ready yet. So I spent almost 10 years, 9.5 on the PM side. And I really like one thing about me is I would need something different all the time. And it's like a blessing and a curse. We talk about this. And I don't know if it's like a Enneagram 7 thing or if it's just this like part visionary that I have. I don't know. Because we talked about that too, like visionary versus integrator. And I don't really align with either, but I just wanted something different. But I was really nervous about how it would shift my relationships in the industry. And I think perception freaked me out too. Like, what does this mean for me? And I feel like I have the, like, this incredible network now as a property manager. I was on the Verma board of directors. Switching meant that I had to give up my board seat. Um, but I don't know, like something about Inhaven and Ashley specifically and what she was building really like made sense to me. I think what's been surprising since is I was telling the team maybe 2 days ago that we had dealt with like owners and guests on the PM side that are just nasty for years and years and years. And like it's so frustrating. And I was like, I'm excited to leave that part of the job behind. You don't really leave it behind because like there are still people that suck on the supplier side. And it's also just such a different like I remember being a property manager and being frustrated by the vendor emails that I got, or walking down the vendor hall and being like, oh God, I've got to like dodge.
You are the hunted.
Yeah, right. And so moving to the other side has been interesting because I have this perspective of being a property manager and knowing, like, okay, here's what property managers care about, here's what they feel passionately about. How can we like integrate that into our sales process while also not being annoying, while also making sure that we're selling because we have money to make? So I don't know. It's been really interesting, like a huge learning curve. I'm in my third month now.
Nice. You mentioned the what property managers are passionate about, and you understand that. I want to go back. You said 9 years of being a PM. That is hard. That is like a long, it's a lot of
It was a long
hours, a
time.
lot of issues dealt with. Like you said, some owners can be less than ideal. What is your like, where does your passion for the industry come from, and where does your passion that kept you sustaining 9 year run as a manager? Because that's probably tens and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of guests that you in some way cared for. Like, where does that passion come from for you personally? Like, were you born with it? Did you develop it? Dig deep. Where does it come from?
Okay, so I've never been in any other industry. Like I started at 360 Blue 6 months out of college, which is unique, right? Like so many people have careers prior to ending up in the vacation rental industry and they've like, stumbled upon the industry. I am one of those people where I definitely stumbled upon it. In fact, I was like, I'm taking this job because this company looks fun and I'm 22. And I never had this desire to be like a leader or run a company or run a team. And the second that I started at 360, I swear it was like my first day. I was like, what can I do to like climb up the ladder and make as much of an impact as possible? Like something ignited in me, which I think was like the spark of initial passion because I am not someone who like cared about school, unfortunately. I like way cared about hanging out with my friends and going out on the weekend and my sorority in college and like that's what I was passionate about. And then I just could never find my way. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to be a PA. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to move to Thailand to teach English. Like I was just kind of all over the place, like searching for my purpose. And when I realized that at a young age, what I loved so much about 360 is that I was 22, but I had like so much opportunity and I didn't have a lot of experience. I was just like gritty and hardworking and knew what I didn't know and was kind of open to learning as much as I possibly could. And that was exciting to the leadership team. And so when I left 6 years later, I was the chief strategy officer and we had grown exponentially, like 3x since I had started. The company sold. I stayed with the buyer for a while, for a year, and they offered me a job at the senior leadership level. And I just thought, like, it's time for something different. And I've told you this, Dave, and I feel like you and I align here. I like once a company gets to a certain size, I'm like, I got to start back at like the startup size again. Like
Hmm.
that is what I'm like so passionate about and making like change. And I need differentiation of every single day and every hour, and I don't really love routine. And so I don't know, I guess like that is one of my passions for sure. That's what keeps me motivated. And then in terms of passions, like I feel so strongly about giving back to young people who want to grow and learn like what was given to me. And I feel like I owe my career to the Jason Sprinkles of the world who trusted this like 22-year-old who had no experience and was just kind of young and hungry. And I want to pay that forward. So yeah, I don't know. Is that a good answer? What are you passionate about?
Is that a good answer? I mean, I just enjoy talking to you because all your answers, like, they don't have, like, I know you're passionate about it because I can hear it. And I think that's not typical of the world, but it's typical or it's something we see in vacation rentals all the time because you have to be passionate about a hard, very, very hands-on, people-oriented, yet there's like plenty of tech to call this a tech-enabled industry, but
Hmm.
you kind of, I think, see above that fray to like for you, what's the next mountain to climb or to conquer? And it's honestly inspiring to me. But I mean, if you're asking me about my passion, I've been thinking a lot about this because I I've never really picked my next job. I feel like it's kind of picked me or something happened and then I was like, I just have to do this. I've never like gone around and interviewed at multiple companies because I needed a job. It was more like I needed a problem to solve or I had a problem to solve, and then it needed to be wrapped around in a company in order to get it done or do it at scale. So I've been accused of having passion before. I will admit I get feisty or impatient and but when it comes to like where does my passion or has my passion come from, I think it like this sounds a little cheesy, but like the house I grew up in, like my parents both had an ethos that, and this, still like it lives within me, is that you have to do something productive and good for other people. And it was this mentality of if you can, the Ikigai, right? I don't know all the parts of that, but basically the Venn diagram of like if you're passionate about it, you're good at it, the world
Hmm.
needs it, and you can get paid for it. Um, you want to be right in the middle of all that. And those were kind of the lessons I grew up with because both my parents had jobs like that, and they kind of said it doesn't feel like they're working every day. They're just doing what they want to do or pursuing the outcomes that they want to see. And that I really like the more and more the older I get, I'm middle-aged now. You're not middle-aged yet, so I'll be the wise guy here. But I recently turned middle-aged and I realized like it's now not time to keep practicing or preparing. Like it's time to really put stamps on industries or the world, for trying to be not humble, but like realistic here is like we can change our industry. We definitely can, which then would change other people's lives and the world around it. And I think I get really excited about that. So
Hmm.
I think my passion comes from like the uh, value system that I grew up around and the space that we're in leaves plenty of things to solve. You and I have talked about standards. We've talked about guest expectations. We've talked about the ability to kind of grow this industry up or mature it, evolve it faster than it's organically evolving. And so I guess just to narrow down for you, or the question I have for you is like 5 years from now, what do you want to see change in this industry? And how are you going to do it? And what's the first step?
Oh my gosh. Okay. That is such a good question. I There's so much that I feel excited about in the industry. One thing, can I start with what I hope never changes, is this like sense of community that our industry holds, and it's because we're still so small and young. And for the most part, everyone in our industry is like so eager to learn more and learn from each other and share information and cultivate friendships and solve problems together. And I like never ever want that to change. That is like what keeps me here at my heart as like someone who appreciates community so much and culture more than anything. And like I feel very passionately about company culture. And so I hope that that never changes. Like, I feel so fortunate to be a part of an industry that, in a lot of ways, this is like, the corporate BS, like, feels like a family because it does. Like, when I got engaged or when I got married or when I got pregnant, all within the last 6 months, I got so many gifts from industry friends and like handwritten letters and things. And I just thought to myself, like, wow, this doesn't exist in an industry with, hundreds of thousands of people. There is not as much of a sense of community there. And so I hope that that never changes. And then, this concept of hospitality has been really at the forefront of so many conversations in the last, like, I don't know, 3, 4 months. I feel like anyone you have a conversation with in the industry is talking about hospitality. And I think we're at this like pivotal moment where technology and automation can overtake so much of a job. And I am a huge AI fan. Like, I use ChatGPT at least 10 times a day. So I can appreciate the efficiencies that come with increased tech enablement, but I also want this like core of hospitality to continue to be at the forefront of what we do every single day. And I'm really curious to see how we navigate the next 5 years. Like, I can only imagine what technology is going to look like. And I think face to face and ear to ear interaction with guests is so, so important. And I hope that never goes away. And I also hope that there are so many problems that I was about to say that property managers face on a daily basis that are just so like frustrating, like owner conversation. A lot of things can feel repetitive at the end of the day because you're having the same conversations during booking season about occupancy and why homes aren't booking. And then I don't know, like it's very cyclical. And so I do hope that there is more automation in that way that can assist property managers with those conversations and kind of take away the difficult conversations or a part of the difficult conversations that they have to have on a weekly, monthly, annual, quarterly basis with homeowners that I think can become really, really exhausting. And I think that just comes with improved education overall in the industry and with owners. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm like, I can only imagine what it's going to look like 5 years from now because 5 years ago looks so different than what it looks like right now.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. I mean, there's also the phrase that people overestimate what they can do in a year and completely underestimate what they can do in 3 to 5 years, right? So you want the 5 year result fast, but then when you think of what a 5 year result could be, you actually, it's like almost impossible. It's like a failure of imagination constantly because the nature of the beast is like you can only kind of see as far out as the calendar, and nobody's really looking at 2030 right now. Like, what am I going to do January 1st, 2030? Like, nobody's really talking about that. But I think it's worth talking about. Like you said, it's really exciting. And the rear view mirror is a little bit of a guide, right? Past his prologue. But you mentioned the repetitive, the boring. You mentioned Enneagram 7, which full disclosure, I'm an Enneagram 7 as well. Maybe there's a lot. I wonder if we did the whole industry, if where people would end up. For those of you who don't know the Enneagram, go talk to Linny Jones. She can straighten you out, help you understand who you are. Shout out. But you mentioned boring or repetitive stuff. I want to ask you, this is a question I think about myself, like those make or break moments in your career where you had, it's like red pill, blue pill, left or right, and you have to decide. And it's kind of a one-way decision, like you don't get to reverse course. Um, what, like if you could point at one, let's call it, what was like the hardest decision, hardest moment, or you know, have you ever wanted to like throw in the towel in the industry and like go a completely different direction and you said, "Hey, I'm going to stick around and double down." Anything come to mind? Because I feel like that's really telling.
Yeah, there are probably like five instances that come to mind, but the most pivotal moment, I think, of my career so far, I will never forget this. I had started to feel 360 had been acquired, and what we had built there together felt like one of my coworkers used to always say, like, it feels like we won the Super Bowl. Like, this company that we had built was so incredibly just fantastic in so many ways. Like, we had a culture that you couldn't compete with, and we were always trying to do something better every single day. Like, I think that this like continuous improvement constantly. And I don't know, like I felt so much passion going, like every single day I would wake up excited to go into work. And when the company sold, I had this massive identity crisis where I had only ever associated myself with working at 360, and I had so much opportunity given to me, and I was really worried about, is anyone going to take me seriously that's not the company that I work for now? Like, who's going to give someone the number two position at a company with 700 homes and 200 employees to a 26-year-old? Like, I'm going to have to like start off as an assistant somewhere else or be back on the phones again. And I just had like a lot of imposter syndrome. But the company was changing rapidly, and a lot of things felt like they were being almost dismantled post acquisition, which I think is just very common as two companies start to be combined together. And I laid on the floor of my bedroom on my back, literally like a starfish. And I had this like thought where I knew it's like the words, "it's time to go," were like tattooed on my brain. I knew that I had to leave. And it was so scary because I had no idea what I was going to do next. Didn't know at what level I was going to have to start at, if the company culture would be the same, if there would be as much opportunity. I also knew that now I had to go and look for a job while I was still working my full-time job. And that is, most people have done that. And that's exhausting when you're interviewing and then also showing up to work. And I don't know, it was, I couldn't like turn it off. Once I knew I needed to go, there was no like unknowing that I needed to go. And I think about that moment all the time. And so I opened up my notes app on my phone and I wrote a list of non-negotiables. And I knew the list had to be small. It was like five things. And I decided that if these five non-negotiables weren't met, like I wasn't going to take my next job. And so that list still exists on my phone, and it's like what guides me to my next decision. Yeah, that was a rough time.
What what's on that list?
Um, oh, it's so good. Opportunity is like number one, which like I say that so much. Yeah, the list is literally called work non-negotiables. And then I made one called like relationship non-negotiables. And I've kept this list for a really long time. So
Did
opportunity.
Clark clearly Clark met the relationship one,
Yeah,
right?
right. I know. I am married now.
Don't look at it
So
and find out that he missed one because it's a little late.
yeah, exactly. Autonomy was big on the list. And for me, it's I have to have leadership that is like gonna teach me something every single day, ideally teach me 10 things every single day, even just by like watching, right? Or I need to have autonomy. and the ability to make decisions and move the company forward. And if I don't have one or the other, then I feel very stuck. A company that is willing to break the mold and consistently improve, which you would think is a given, it's not a given for so many different businesses. And a company that prioritizes culture
Mm,
and a company that also prioritizes transparency. And I knew that those things to me, if they all didn't exist, like I couldn't be there.
wow. You're kind of wise.
Thanks. I'm the youngest. I of four. So I feel like maybe it's because I had to sit with my sister who's 10 years older than me all the time, and she's very wise.
Well, I'm the youngest and I behave like it. So, it's different. I don't know the Enneagram's going to cover that one, but yeah, there's really interesting elements to like how you grew up or the sibling dynamics. And I find for me, like there are certain people I just resonate with. Like my wife is the oldest of three. I'm the youngest of three. And there's like either you're the same, like two sevens who can't finish one story, but neither of them care because it's just like, what's the next thing? And they call it the epicure, like the poo-poo platter of life people who want to go a mile wide, inch deep. And then there's I guess it's more like the ones on the Enneagram who are like perfectionist and just like, I need the checklist and the direction and I will just knock it out and that makes me happy. So those opposites attracting and then the sames attracting, and everybody else is in the middle too. But I feel like we both have that epicure or just curiosity, right? It's like can't, I can't not want to go like explore, learn something new. Um, I want to ask you as well uh, for your next 5 years. The world is your oyster. Let's play a little game called If I Wasn't Doing This, What Would I Be Doing? I actually had this conversation yesterday with somebody who was just like, I'll give you my answer because I guess I have the microphone and I'm allowed to ask myself a question. Dave, what would you do? I honestly have no freaking idea because like I am all in on what I'm doing. So it's like not even a passing thought. But for you, like let's say you had to go to a different planet, a different industry, maybe not a different planet, but a different industry, like what would it be? Like I'm sure your non-negotiable list might be the same, but like have you ever thought about that?
Yes, so my dream my dream since maybe I was like 18 is that no, 22, when I decided that I wanted to be a CEO. I wanted to become CEO of Disney. And technically it's not, I mean, they're a media company. I was going to say like there is hospitality in there, but I haven't thought long and hard about this in a long time, like if I still want that. I do idolize Bob Iger, the current CEO of Disney. And so I don't know. I've always thought I'm like obsessed with the mystique of Disney World. Any company that can create mystique, I think is so cool. Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons. Disney is like the epicenter of creating mystique with the worlds that they create. And so, yeah, I don't know. That is my answer. It would be I mean, Bob Iger wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning just to have like one iota of silence. And I'm currently waking up at about 7:50 in the morning, begrudgingly. I have been, I'm pregnant. So my relationship to the world and to my family and to my job is changing drastically in about 20 weeks. And that has freaked me out a lot, to be honest. I waited until my 30s. I'm going to be 32, like right after I give birth, to have kids, which I'm excited about. And my husband and I were really fortunate and got pregnant sooner than we would have expected. We were excited about it, but it's also really scary to think about like what this means as someone who has really like created this identity around my career, and a lot of my self-worth has been built around my career over the last 10 years. And I was listening to the Call Her Daddy podcast, which I love so much. And Alex Cooper had Ellen Pompeo, Meredith Grey from Grey's Anatomy on. And it was so good. And she talks about how so many women think they're going to be at a disadvantage in their career when they have kids, but it makes you like more passionate and fiery and excited and loving and just better in so many ways. And I think, I've looked at it from this perspective of like, is going out on maternity leave going to set me back? And I know my priorities are going to change so much. And I don't know. It's really interesting, like this identity shift that I'm afraid of, but also excited for, of course. And I think that like that interview resonated with me so much because she is this like badass woman that is financially independent and has built this incredible career and has a family of three and talks about how it just made her better in every single way.
My gosh. I love that answer. I think you're shout out to the moms out there. Seriously. I come from one and she was amazing. I think of she had three kids in 24 months.
No.
So she had three under two at one point, or there was a 2 years in 1 week because my brother, who was adopted, and then my sister and I came back to back. So it was like almost biologically impossible without that. And she remarked at one point that she had to look in the mirror and she was like assuming that she couldn't do all of the above, right? Especially with three under two. And one of her colleagues, and I'll say this to you because she's no longer with us in human form, but she's everywhere around me. I saw a cardinal earlier today, and I was like, "Hell yeah, hi mom!" And her colleague said to her, "Marty, you spin so many plates already. Like, what makes you think you couldn't handle this too? Like, you've not backed down from challenges before. Why would you like change who you are, your mentality around this challenge or this new responsibility?" So, by way of me, not a mom, that was something I learned about my mom, and lo and behold, she actually went on to have like the greatest years of her career and made it to, the top of Brandeis University as the provost by the end of it all. And I was just thinking, like, what if she hadn't made that decision? And, some people, like everybody's circumstances are different, right? Not everybody has choices and things, but I just love that. And I'm gonna go a little bit off, not that there is a script, but in a direction. I really like short-term rentals are 60% women. 60% of people in our industry are women. Without stereotyping at all, I think that this industry it makes sense to me because of the type of work that it is, the collaboration, the hospitality, and it says I'm not saying anything about men's in general like ability to do anything. I just think there's a natural fit. And I at one point starting Rent Responsibly, it was our first five teammates, I think it was, were women. So I had a very interesting ratio, and I ended up going to the women's summit that shout out Amy Hinote put on. So I was like, well, the rest of my team's going. I should probably go too. And I got so much out of that. And I think that there's just something really cool. Again, that opposites and just different ways of looking at the world. But yeah, shout out to the women in the industry, the moms in the industry, uh, the leaders. Like I think there's an ascendancy. Like if you just look at the ratio of women running companies in this industry, I know that it's gone up. I think we actually wrote an article about that at Rent Responsibly. I'll have to find that. Anyways, I think that there's really a cool dynamic where uh especially because, sorry, last thought is, people want autonomy, like you said. And there are elements of mothers that, a kid is going to rely on their mother differently than their father, especially in the very early years. And to accommodate that, you do need relatively flexible job situations. So an individual host is able to do certain things that if you have a 9 to 5 W-2, whatever, are just difficult, if not impossible. And I think it's a really awesome feature and facet of the industry. I I'll think more about that, but I also really want women to run our country. So I'm working on that too. Uh,
Same.
not to get at all political. I just have seen some incredible leaders, and I think many of them are women, and that needs to happen.
I love it. I love it so much. I love a male feminist. Ashley's husband, Mike, we always joke is like number one feminist. He thinks that women are incredible. And the team at Inhaven is primarily women. But one thing that Ellen said on this Call Her Daddy interview, so I think everyone should listen to it. I mean, it was so good. She said that it is absolutely impossible to be 100% at work when you have a baby, and that you're worried about that. But there is like you're broken into pieces, right? And like a piece of you exists within your child. And you think that that is going to set you back in so many ways. But the person that it like transforms you into is actually that much of a better employee or leader or friend or spouse. And so I don't know. I think as I like prepare for this, the largest life change that I've ever gone through. And I experienced this fear about how it could potentially set me back. I look at all these women, Ashley being one of them, who has 4 kids and runs a successful business. Like there are so many people like that in our industry. Jody Rufusco has children and she is a badass. And Ginger Harrelson, a great friend of mine, has 2 kids and runs a company with her husband. And I don't know, there are so many people in our industry, like you said, 60%, and so many of those being women that have children, I think is just like they're all trailblazers that I'm excited to follow in their path.
Yeah, you'll have no shortage of support. And count me in on your support crew, because I really admire you and enjoy working with you, and you kind of operate with a level of ease that I wish I had a little more of, and I think people catch that, and it's a little contagious. Like, why can't this be fun? Why can't we just make this simple? Why can't we do chat GPT this? Because a lot of people aren't using it 10 times a day, and I think that's just emblematic. Last question to you, and I'll do the thing where I ask myself first. Dave, what was your word of the year or your intention of the year? It is and was connection. And that's part of the reason we're on this call right now, is like we have these types of calls sometimes anyways. We just haven't shared them with anybody. So my thing, my word, my and now kind of action that I'm taking is around connection, connecting to people. For you, and I think you've covered a lot of changes, things that you have already. But like if you were to put a word on your year from an intention standpoint, what's that word?
It's so funny. I found out that I was pregnant on December 28th. So right before the new year, which changed my intention setting quite a bit. We were very excited but surprised, but also then we were like, why are we surprised about this? The first thought that comes to mind is hold on, which is technically 2 words. Um, but I resonated with a lot of in a lot of ways. You know, my life has been filled with a lot of like incredibly positive changes over the last several months or year. And I love that. Like I operate from this place of chaos, and my husband is the same way. I almost have to be more of a one in our marriage because he is so much of a seven and kind of like all over the place. But I think yeah, my plan right now is to hold on and like embrace. I guess that's another, maybe that's a better word, is I'm experiencing so much change, more change than I've ever experienced in my life. Every time I look in the mirror, my body looks different. I feel physically different all the time. My emotions are different. And I am starting this new job and trying to like prove myself all the time and maintain like relevancy before I'm going to be out for several months. And so yeah, I think that it's like embracing and surrender is a lot of what I'm doing right now, like surrendering to a lot of things that I have zero control over, and then embracing the fact that like I'm doing really cool things both professionally and personally, and that's something to be proud of.
Hell yeah. Mic
That was
drop.
like 5 words. Sorry.
No, I mean, I'm here for it. You just like you can have 5 words. You can have 500 words. Who cares? Thank you so much. This was so much fun. I knew it would be, but
Thank
God, you
you.
deliver. And I just a lot of stuff to think about. I just realized we don't have like this series is called Why We Do This. It's very unstructured, as you can tell, but I think we should try a sign off. What do you think? Maybe
Yeah,
if we
let's do
both
it.
said, and that's why we do this right at the end, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Tell
Three,
me when.
2, 1. And
And
that's
that's why we
why
do
we do this.
this.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.